Tonight, the College Football Playoff Committee released their first playoff rankings of the year, and some surprises in my opinion. To other people's opinions, probably not really. Let's start with their number 4, what their top 4 was. Georgia was put at number 1, Alabama was put at number 2, Notre Dame was put at number 3, and Clemson was put at number 4. I'm a little bit surprised that Georgia was put at number 1, but since Mississippi State was ranked number 16 in that original top 25 poll that they released, maybe it doesn't surprise me at all right now because Mississippi State was undefeated when Georgia clobbered them 31-3. And plus, Georgia's got another convincing win over Notre Dame. A good marquee win, 20-19, low-scoring game. Maybe if one thing goes differently in that game, we're talking about maybe Notre Dame be the number 1 team in the country. But who knows at this point? Their first 2 out was Oklahoma and Ohio State, which Oklahoma is number 5 over Ohio State. Oklahoma beat Ohio State week 2, so that makes sense. The next 2 out, number 7 Penn State was ranked number 7, and number 8 TCU, which I'm surprised that they were in the top 10, considering they pretty much got shut out against Iowa State, because their 7 points were courtesy of special teams. Then the following 2 out, number 9 and 10, to round out the top 10. Number 9, 2 unbeaten teams. Number 9 was Wisconsin, and number 10 is Miami, Florida. And the reason why those 2 are undefeated, it's pretty simple. Wisconsin hasn't played anybody, but Wisconsin does have the golden ticket to go to the Big Ten championship game. So if Wisconsin loses at any point before the Big Ten title game, well, if Wisconsin loses at all, they're done. Wisconsin has to win the Big Ten to be even considered to be in the playoff. Because Wisconsin doesn't have a signature victory yet. Their most convincing victory so far this year is against Northwestern. And for Miami, Florida, Miami hasn't played competitive ball either. They haven't played a marquee opponent. They're going to finally play a marquee opponent, Virginia Tech, this Saturday, which that could dictate who plays Clemson in the ACC title game. And plus, Miami has gotten bailed out on a couple of different plays the last 3 weeks. Against Florida State, it was that one touch. It was the game-winning touchdown in the last couple of seconds. Against Georgia Tech, it was the 4th down play. It looked like the ball just bounced off the receiver's helmet. So if that was incomplete, Miami's out of the playoff contention right now. I think they would be if they would have lost to Georgia Tech. And last week against a 1-7 North Carolina team, a late turnover by their defense in the last 2.5 minutes bailed them out. So really, Miami, Florida they could be a 3-loss team right now. So I think that's what the committee is looking at. So I think they are looking at possibly Miami could be a 3-loss team right now if those three plays go exactly, if they have a different outcome. Miami's a 3-loss team and they're probably unranked. But a lot of these games this week will determine all these different resumes that teams will have. Like, for example, Bedlam is going to be a game. Miami versus Virginia Tech is going to be a game. Clemson versus NC State. In fact, a great comment from Green Man. He commented in the Week 10 predictions video, so if you want to look what this comment says, it's under that video. He said, the Clemson-the NC State game is going to be really looked at by the committee in regard to how they looked at Notre Dame down the road. If Clemson loses, this could be an ACC elimination game from the college football playoff. If Clemson blows out NC State, then it could hurt Notre Dame a bit. And then I responded, what if they only win by 14? Does that help Notre Dame more or hurt them a bit? And then he said in response, this is a perfect response. This is almost subscriber of the week type of a response. He says, I think that would make it a coin toss at that point. His point was that both games will be played back to back and give the committee a real common opponent to look at 2 different contenders for the Final Four. In his opinion, he thinks there are 2 things that the committee does not want to do unless they are forced to. And you could probably guess what these are. But if you don't know, here's what number 1 was. Number 1 is to put a non-Power 5 team in the college football playoff. For example, Notre Dame, UCF, Boise State if they would have done this back in 2007, 2006, 2008, or TCU back in 2008, 2009, whatever. So basically the non-Power 5 is the group of 5 teams. Number 2 was put 2 teams from the same conference in the college football playoff. Because honestly, I don't think they want to do that anymore either after what happened with a national title rematch back in 2011 between LSU and Alabama. I don't think they want another 2011 situation. And I also don't think they want another 2007 situation as well, where they could put a two-loss team competing for the national championship and possibly winning the national championship. So I think that's another situation. They don't want to put a two-loss team in there either. Because according to all these points that Greenman and I have both made, they don't want to see another 2007 situation. They don't want to see another 2011 situation. So that is a good response by Greenman. But if we looked at what my top 10 was, I released my college football playoff rankings, those top 10 rankings, back on Saturday night. And I had Alabama at number 1, simply because of its Alabama, and plus Alabama should be the number 1 team right now because they haven't really played a challenging game yet, because their closest game was against Texas A&M so far. But Alabama's got big games coming up against Mississippi State, LSU this Saturday night. They still got the Iron Bowl. So they got 3 games coming up, including what we're all going to assume, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves yet, but the SEC championship game. So let's just assume Alabama wins all 4 of those games. Then will they be the number 1 team? Most likely, yes. I had Georgia number 2 and the Notre Dame at 3. Because if one play goes differently, just think about one big play Georgia had in that game. If it has a different outcome, like if the ball gets turned over, then we're talking about Notre Dame probably being an undefeated team right now. Because right now, if Notre Dame loses one more game, they're gone. Because Notre Dame doesn't have the buffer anymore. I had Ohio State number 4 because when Ohio State is playing at their best, which is what they did in the fourth quarter against Penn State, if we see that type of Ohio State team for the rest of the year, they're going to be the national champions. If we see that fight that they put in the fourth quarter against Penn State, being down the majority of that game, in fact, they were down for 58 minutes in that game. If we see that resilience to Ohio State the rest of the season, it's going to be tough taking that national championship from them, even Alabama. So right now, I think Alabama's biggest competition for the national championship could be Ohio State. In fact, I think the biggest 3 competition, the 3 teams that compete with them are Ohio State, Clemson, and Georgia. Because right now, I think if Georgia and Alabama face off in the SEC title game, I think Alabama would considerably be a 3 or 4 point favorite. I don't think they'd be a 10-point favorite like a lot of these experts are thinking, but I still think Alabama will be a slight favorite in that matchup. And I think Alabama could actually beat Georgia in this game if this were to be played this weekend. But since we still got about 5 weeks until that happens, we just got to see what Alabama does in their games leading up to it. My first 2 were Clemson and Wisconsin. I just put Wisconsin at number 6 because I feel like you don't really go undefeated at this point by accident. I mean, Wisconsin's still a good team. They haven't played like any Ohio States. They haven't played any Michigans yet. They haven't played any Penn States. They haven't played any Oklahomas or anything like that. But they haven't played a big marquee opponent yet, so that's why Wisconsin is at 6. I put Penn State 7, Oklahoma at 8. The number 9 I put Miami. The number 10 I put Oklahoma State. Because I think if Oklahoma State would have... Because Oklahoma State did have 4 turnovers in that TCU game. And plus, one of them was when they were trying to get it back to 1 possession. I think if Oklahoma State doesn't let's say Oklahoma State only turned the ball over maybe twice in that TCU game, possibly Oklahoma State could be undefeated right now. We're talking about, could Oklahoma State sneak into the top 4? Would they be in the top 4? But yes, a lot of these games are going to determine playoff. They got playoff implications on them, like Bedlam in particular. Clemson and NC State. Miami and Virginia Tech. And there are a lot of games coming down the road that will determine things as well. Like Notre Dame, Miami in 2 weeks. I apologize. But still, a lot of these games are going to determine everything, and I'll be back later this week to talk about the college football playoff. Saturday night, we're going to have another top 10. right on this board right here. So like and subscribe to the channel, share this with your friends and family. I will see you next time. Have a great day, everybody.